Welcome to the deep dive. We take your source material, pull out the really crucial insights, and basically give you a shortcut to being well-informed.
Exactly. No wading through everything. Just the key takeaways, those aha moments.
And today, we're diving deep into leadership and achievement.
That's right. Based on excerpts from Joe Carter's book, Driving, Not Surviving.
Yeah, and what really struck me about Carter's stuff is how practical it feels. It's not just theory.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from surveys, sure, but also his own experience.
Yeah.
Like across different industries, it feels grounded.
Absolutely. And for me, the big thing was his focus on bridging that gap. The gap between having a strategy and actually making it happen.
That strategy execution gap.
And that really boils down to behavior, changing how people act.
Right. And for you listening, trying to get up to speed quickly, but, properly, this is for you, those light bulb moments.
So our mission today is really to unpack Carter's framework, to understand how to, drive, as he puts it, not just survive in leadership and your own goals.
Okay, let's get into it. Where does Carter start us off?
Well, he really emphasizes establishing a benchmark first. You need to know where you're starting from.
Okay.
And then choose a leadership benchmark. That could be a specific person, maybe a principle you live by, or even a purpose.
And he uses Abraham Lincoln as an example, right?
Right.
Which is, it's a powerful one.
It really is, because we see Lincoln as this, ultimate success story.
Mm-hmm.
But Carter pulls back the curtain on just how many setbacks he faced. Losing his home, his mother's death, businesses failing, a nervous breakdown.
Repeated political losses, too. Just failure after failure.
It's kind of staggering when you list it all out, and Carter really focuses on Lincoln's resilience through all that.
Yeah, sticking with it despite just overwhelming opposition.
Which leads him to ask a pretty tough question, really. He asks you, the listener, could you honestly keep fighting for a dream with that much pushback?
And it's a fair question.
Yeah.
And he acknowledges, most people might say no.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Exactly. The point of the benchmark isn't really to compare yourself or feel bad.
Right.
It's more about using it like a mirror to figure out what qualities you actually value in leadership. What is it about Lincoln or whoever your benchmark is that clicks with you?
Makes sense. So benchmark first. Then what?
Then he moves into discovering your dream. And this isn't some huge abstract thing at first.
Okay.
He makes it really concrete. He says, ask yourself, what is it that I would gladly do for free? And the key is, write down the very first thing that pops into your head.
That first instinct.
Yeah, and he gives examples people have given him, like teaching kids, being a sports announcer, owning a restaurant, counseling. It's personal.
Right, it varies wildly.
And he connects this to Jerry Roderick's idea of the thought of truth, that first gut reaction.
Before you start overthinking it or second-guessing.
Exactly, before the self-doubt creeps in. Clarifying that, he says, is fundamental. It's your internal compass.
Okay, so what you do for free. Is there another step?
Yes, a second question. What did I do today that made me smile? Simple, but revealing.
Huh. And he shares his own example.
Yeah, his wedding day, just pure joy.
So what's the connection he's making there? Between the do for free thing and the made me smile thing?
He's connecting your passion, what genuinely brings you joy, to that core dream or desire.
Ah.
Because when those line up, that's what fuels the drive. That's what moves you past just, surviving day to day. It taps into that intrinsic motivation.
Got it. So know your benchmark, find your dream. Then he gets into defining leadership itself.
Right. And he stresses making it personal, not just reciting some textbook definition. What does leadership actually mean to you?
Okay.
And then he boils it down. He says every leader essentially has to master two core areas.
Which are?
Creating a strategy and, crucially, achieving that strategy.
And he argues the second part, the achieving, is the tougher one.
By far. That's where most leaders apparently run into trouble.
Which is where his framework comes in, I assume.
Exactly. This is the setup for his 4 modus operandi of achievement.
Okay, the 4 MOs.
Yes. And he's clear this isn't just academic. It's a practical method he built and tweaked over, 20 years?
Wow.
Yeah, across different companies, different team sizes, all aimed at getting consistent, measurable results.
So it's meant to have real impact.
That's the claim. On careers, businesses, even personal relationships, a concrete tool for change.
Okay, so we've got strategy and achievement, and this gap between them.
The strategy versus achievement gap. Yeah, it's a common frustration, isn't it? Good plans just fizzling out.
Definitely seen that happen.
And Carter talks about a turning point for him personally, a meeting at Radio Shack, actually.
Radio Shack, okay.
Yeah, apparently a 3-hour meeting. He says he went in pretty skeptical, actually.
Huh.
But this meeting introduced a framework that, well, he says it totally changed his career path.
Interesting. So that framework was...
The foundation for the 4 modus operandi of achievement. These 4 core principles designed specifically to close that gap.
And these are meant to be actionable, right? Not just ideas.
Absolutely. Practical steps you can actually use to get your team's behavior lined up with the big goals.
Okay, let's dig into that.
Yeah.
Because leadership isn't just telling people what to do.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Carter really hammers this point. Achievement requires driving real engagement.
Connecting hearts and minds, as they say.
Pretty much. Fostering that emotional connection, that real commitment, not just compliance.
He mentions his Radio Shack experience again here, doesn't he? When introducing new goals.
He does. He talks about getting mixed reactions. Some people were on board, others resistant.
Okay.
And his takeaway wasn't that the resistant ones were bad employees. It was that they hadn't connected yet. They didn't feel seen or valued in the process.
So you have to lay that groundwork first. Build trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People need to feel valued before they can really commit.
Which brings up that difference between just doing what you're told, compliance, and actually believing in it, commitment.
Right. Compliance might get you short-term results, maybe. But Carter argues lasting success only comes from real emotional commitment.
And people don't just change because you order them to.
No. He says real change happens when they trust the leader, when they believe the leader genuinely cares about their growth, not just the numbers.
So that investment in trust is key.
Fundamental. And leading with empathy, genuinely wanting your team to succeed, that leads to smarter work, more ownership.
What about when things go wrong? Setbacks.
He sees those as opportunities, actually. Opportunities to strengthen that emotional bond, to reinforce trust.
Because ultimately people need the why, don't they?
That's it, the why behind the strategy. That's what really motivates people to go beyond just ticking boxes.
Okay, so engagement is crucial. Then he talks about different kinds of strategies.
Yeah, he makes a really useful distinction. Stroke of the pen strategies versus behavioral change strategies.
Edit with a pen. Like things you can just authorize.
Exactly. Capital investments, changing the org chart, adjusting compensation, launching an ad campaign. If you have the authority and resources, you can often just make it happen.
Right. But behavioral change, that's different.
Totally different beast. That requires getting people, often lots of people, to actually change how they think and act day to day.
And that's harder because
it pushes people out of their comfort zones, out of their routines.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we tend to blame the people when it doesn't work.
Right. But Carter brings in W. Edwards Deming here, the quality guru. Deming basically said if most people are behaving a certain way, the problem usually isn't the people, it's the system they're in.
Huh. So don't blame the team. Look at the process or the structure.
Pretty much. And a huge barrier he found, especially for behavioral change, was just a lack of clarity.
People not knowing what the goals actually are.
Shockingly often, yes. He shares a statistic from an early study. Only 1 in 7 employees could even name one of their company's top 3 goals.
Wow, 1 in 7. That's low.
It is. And it got worse the further down the org chart you went. Less clarity the further from the top.
So if people don't even know the goal, how can they change their behavior to hit it?
Exactly. And even when they did know the goals, his surveys found only about half, maybe 51%, actually felt passionate or committed to them.
So lack of clarity, lack of commitment. What else gets in the way?
The whirlwind.
The whirlwind.
Yeah, his term for the massive amount of energy it takes just to keep the daily operations running, all the urgent stuff that pops up.
Okay, the day-to-day fires.
Right. And he asks you to think about a big goal your organization had maybe a year or 2 ago. Did it get done? Or did it just kind of fade away?
Yeah. Often they just get swamped by the immediate stuff.
That's what he calls slow suffocation. The whirlwind just drowns out the important strategic stuff over time.
Like finding old meeting notes for an initiative you barely remember starting.
Exactly that feeling. And his key point is, unless you have a specific system to protect those strategic goals, the whirlwind will always win.
Okay, so that sets the stage perfectly for his solution, right? The 4 modus operandi.
Precisely. The 4 Mo's are designed as that system to counteract the whirlwind and bridge the strategy execution gap.
And modus operandi just means a way of operating.
Yeah, like a standard method. He uses a burglar analogy, a preferred technique they use consistently. In business, it's a pattern of action done in sequence.
Got it. And he claims these four, while maybe sounding simple, are really powerful.
Transformative, he suggests. Once you really get them and use them, you won't lead the same way again. It's a practical framework for getting things done.
All right, let's break them down. What's MO1?
MO1 is focus on the ferociously important goal, or the FIG.
Ferociously important. Okay.
Yeah, the key here is less is more. Leaders have to fight that urge to do everything and instead focus the team's energy on just one or two things that will make the biggest difference.
Like the magnifying glass analogy he uses.
Exactly. Scattered sunlight doesn't do much, but focus it with a magnifying glass and you can start a fire. Same with team energy concentrated.
So pick just one or two big goals, not try to improve 10 things at once.
Right. And that goal needs to be ferociously important, meaning it requires extreme determination, as he puts it.
He uses Michael Phelps as an example here.
Yeah, the swimmer. His FIG was always winning multiple Olympic golds.
Right.
And everything Phelps did, even non-Olympic races, was geared towards that single overarching figure. Intense focus, meticulous planning.
And the results speak for themselves. Most decorated Olympian ever. So unwavering focus on one big thing.
And that FI needs a clear finish line. It has to be measurable.
What does that look like?
He phrases it as from X to Y by when. So not just improve inventory processing,
Okay.
but improve inventory processing from 15 days to 7 days by the end of Q2. Specific, measurable, time-bound.
He contrasts that with NASA's early goals, right?
Right.
Which were kind of vague.
Yeah, back in 58. Very broad. Compared to a practical FI like the inventory example, you can see the difference. You know exactly when you've succeeded.
Okay, so focus on one or two FEs. Make them measurable. Are there other rules for this MO?
Yes, 4 rules of focus he lays out. 1. No team focuses on more than 2 FIGs at once.
Got it.
2. The fix chosen by teams lower down their battles must directly help win the overall war, the top-level F.
Alignment.
Makes sense. 3. Everyone on the team has to know the score. How are we tracking progress?
Visibility.
And 4, accountability, a regular rhythm of holding each other responsible for moving the score.
Okay, focus, alignment, visibility, accountability. And this leads into lag versus lead measures,
Exactly. This is critical. Lag measures are the results you're trying to achieve.
like revenue, profit, customer satisfaction,
Right.
the outcome.
But the problem is, by the time you see those numbers, the actions that cause them are already done. You can't change the past.
Okay, so what are lead indicators?
Lead indicators measure the high-impact actions the team needs to do consistently to reach the lag measure goal.
Things you can actively do.
Right. Things like making X number of sales calls per week or ensuring 100% compliance with a safety checklist.
And good lead indicators are.
Predictive, meaning doing them, makes achieving the goal more likely. And influenceable, the team has to have direct control over doing them.
So the big shift here is focusing less on the end result you can't directly control,
And more on the actions you can control, the lead indicators, that will drive that result.
but most leaders focus on the lag measures.
Overwhelmingly, yes. That's the default. The MO flips that focus onto the lead indicators.
Okay, but why is this intense focus so hard in practice?
Well, several reasons, Carter points out. Leaders naturally see lots of things to fix. New opportunities pop up constantly.
Shandy objects.
Yeah. External pressures pile on. Ambitious people want to do more. Sometimes there's a fear of being responsible for just 1 or 2 things if they fail.
Hedging your bets by doing a bit of everything.
Kind of, and it's just genuinely hard to say no, even to good ideas.
He quotes Tim Cook from Apple here, doesn't he?
Yeah, about how Apple says no to good ideas, even great ideas, all the time to maintain focus.
And Stephen Covey's idea of needing a bigger yes to say no.
Right. Your commitment to the FETAG has to be stronger than the pull of other initiatives.
So instead of asking what's most important,
He suggests asking, if every other area stayed the same, what one area, if improved, would have the greatest impact? Helps narrow it down.
and get the team involved in defining their FEGs.
Crucial for buy-in and commitment. And remember, the FEVEG needs that from X to Y by when structure. Clear finish line.
So narrowing focus feels risky, maybe, but it actually increases responsibility and engagement.
That's the argument. Clarity removes confusion. And these rules of focus, he says, are like gravity non-negotiable if you want results.
Focusing on the vital few. Common sense, maybe, but not common practice.
Like the Aesop fable, he mentions the boy trying to grab too many hazelnuts and getting none.
Right, okay, so that's MO1. Focus on the ferociously important goal. What's MO2?
Modus Operandi 2. Act on the lead indicators.
Okay, so MO1 sets the target. MO2 is about the actions to get there.
Exactly. While the FIG is the destination, the lead indicators are your steering wheel and gas pedal. They tell you if you're likely to get there, and you control them.
He uses a car analogy.
Yeah, car breakdowns are the lag measure, the bad outcome. You can't directly stop a breakdown,
Okay.
but routine maintenance, oil changes, tire checks, those are lead indicators. Proactive behaviors you control that make the breakdown less likely.
Makes sense. So MO2 is about defining those proactive behaviors.
Right. Instead of relying on some rigid long-term plan that might be irrelevant next month, MO2 is about defining the daily or weekly actions that move the lead measures.
So the team develops a kind of just-in-time plan focused on those actions.
Precisely. It's about shifting from passive planning to active, constant execution driven by those lead indicators.
Closing that gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it.
That's the core idea. Because as we said, most leaders track lag measures they can't directly influence. Lead indicator data lets you act now.
Does it give an example?
Yeah. The Houston retail store struggling with sales, their EVG was about increasing average transaction value to match the prior year.
Okay.
They identified lead indicators in the shoe department, show customers at least 4 pairs, send thank you notes, invite them to open a store card.
Specific actions.
Very specific. And by tracking those actions, they saw a direct link to higher average sales. The lead indicators drove the lag measure.
It's a bit like Moneyball, finding those less obvious metrics that predict success.
Exactly, like on-base percentage in baseball. Carter also mentions a target logistics team whose FIG was reducing accidents.
And their lead indicator.
100% compliance with wearing 7 specific pieces of safety gear. Focus on the controllable behavior.
And the benefit is you can adjust strategy based on the lead indicators before the final results are in.
Yes. You see if the actions are working or not in near real time. He uses the pilot's pre-flight checklist as a perfect example.
Right, a set of critical lead indicators for the EVIG of a safe flight.
Absolutely non-negotiable actions.
And leaders who try to juggle too many eckies often simplify once they get this.
That's what Carter observes. Once they see the power of influencing lead indicators, they realize they need to focus their efforts.
He has that comparison, Bob versus Beth.
Yeah, Bob's just told improve sales. Vague, frustrating. Beth focuses her team on a lead indicator, having X number of customer conversations about a specific promotion, much more actionable.
Because the front line is actually driving the results.
Exactly. Lead indicators turn them into strategic partners who see how their daily work connects to the big picture.
Like the Savannah Morning News ad team example, tracking new contacts, reactivation calls, upsell offers.
All concrete actions, lead indicators driving the ultimate goal of ad revenue.
Okay, so MO1 is focus. MO2 is acting on the right levers. What's MO3?
Modus Operandi 3, keep a captivating scoreboard.
Captivating, not just any scoreboard.
Right. His point is simple. People play differently when they're keeping score. Engagement goes way up.
If you don't know the score, you kind of tune out.
Exactly. And if those lead and lag measures aren't on a visual, regularly updated scoreboard, they just get lost in the whirlwind again. They disappear.
So people disengage without a score, but engage when they see they're winning.
That's the psychology. He tells a story about Northrop Grumman leaders and uses a high school football game analogy.
The broken scoreboard.
Yeah. The scoreboard breaks, nobody knows the score, nobody really cares about the game anymore, engagement plummets.
So a good scoreboard tells the team where they are and where they need to be.
Instantly. Which is vital for problem solving, making decisions. It has to be persuasive.
And not some complicated spreadsheet hidden on a server somewhere.
Definitely not. It has to be visible, simple. He talks about the 5-second tests.
Can you tell if you're winning or losing in 5 seconds?
That's it. Just a quick glance. It needs to show both the lead indicators and the lag measure, if I, showing progress against the goal.
And making it meaningful to the team.
Crucial. He gives that great example of the juice bottling plant shift.
The union guys skipping lunch.
Yeah. Because they were so invested in their score on the scoreboard tracking truckloads delivered, they wanted to beat the other shifts. That's engagement.
So the scoreboard fights that feeling from the whirlwind that you can't win.
Exactly. 4Mo creates a winnable game, and the scoreboard proves it. It shows progress.
Then winning boosts morale more than anything else.
Carter argues it's the most effective booster there is. So MO1 sets the goal, MO2 gives you the actions, MO3 makes it a visible, engaging game.
Which leads us to the final piece, MO4.
Right. Modus Operandi 4. Create a cadence of accountability. This is where it all comes together, where execution actually happens.
Getting in the game, as he puts it.
Yeah. And accountability shifts here. It's not about some annual review months later.
Okay.
It's about a weekly rhythm where individuals make personal commitments to the team to move the scoreboard.
This is where the fig sessions come in.
Yes. Weekly meetings, same day, same time, every week, like clockwork.
And the focus is purely on
Actions and results that move the scoreboard. Nothing else. No whirlwind distractions allowed in that meeting.
2 rules for the sessions.
Yep. Same daytime. And the agenda is only about activities driving the scoreboard.
What's the typical agenda look like?
Simple. First, report on last week's commitments. I committed to do X. Here's what happened. Here's what I learned.
Okay, accountability for past actions.
Second, review the scoreboard together. Learn from the successes and failures shown there.
Analyze the data.
And third, plan for the next week. Make new commitments for the week ahead to improve the score.
And the magic is in that rhythm and team members making their own commitments.
That's what Carter emphasizes. That ownership is huge, and committing to your teammates is often more powerful than just committing to the boss. Peer accountability.
So these sessions create a kind of rolling weekly plan that adapts.
A just-in-time achievement plan, exactly. It keeps the team focused on the agate, executing week by week, despite the whirlwind trying to pull them away.
He had that visual example at Target
Yeah.
with the soda cans.
Yeah, red and green construction paper on soda cans to track safety equipment use daily. Simple, visible accountability.
And the contrast with Mount Everest.
Right. John Krakauer's account of the '96 disaster where accountability broke down with tragic results. Compared to Eric Weihenmayer, the blind climber, whose team had intense accountability and succeeded against huge odds.
So leaders need to guide teams to make good commitments in these sessions.
Yeah, by asking that key question, what are the 1 or 2 most important things I can do this week to impact the team's score?
And the sessions help clear roadblocks for each other.
Exactly. It becomes a forum for collective problem solving focused solely on the FAG. And tracking all this FAGs, leads, sessions, commitments on a dashboard keeps it visible.
He mentions Dr. Hallowell's idea about structure and creativity.
Yeah, that structure doesn't stifle creativity, it channels it. The accountability tempo actually releases creativity towards solving the FAG challenge.
For 4MO isn't just about top-down authority.
No, it taps into deeper motivations, wanting to feel significant, do meaningful work, and win as a team.
Okay, so those are the 4MOs. Focus, act, scoreboard, accountability. Seems powerful when put together.
Carter really believes they can fundamentally change culture and results. He contrasts it sharply with typical annual planning.
How so?
Well, annual plans are static. MO4, with the weekly FI sessions and lead indicator tracking, allows for constant adjustment based on real-time data. You can pivot quickly. Annual plans can't do that.
So even a great strategy needs an operating system like 4MO to work consistently.
That's his argument. Without that execution engine, strategies often fail. And these principles, he says, are timeless. They work anywhere.
Like Weight Watchers.
Yeah, similar core ideas, clear focus, weight goal, key behaviors measurement, points tracking, accountability, weigh-ins, meetings. It works.
How does he talk about actually installing 4MO?
He offers different viewpoints. A strategic overview for execs, but a detailed roadmap for leaders implementing it with their teams.
And he uses that Sisyphus analogy.
Right. Pushing the boulder endlessly up the hill, never getting there. That's work without 4MO sometimes. 4MO aims to provide that feeling of progress, of actually reaching the summit.
He also circles back to lead indicators a bit more.
Yeah, clarifying 2 types. Small outcomes, like achieving a certain result by week's end, team figures out how, and leveraged behaviors, specific actions done consistently.
Like the grocery store example. FI has increased sales, leads could be greeting customers or building creative displays.
Exactly, and he gives criteria for a good lead indicator.
Remind me.
Is it predictive of the goal? Can the team actually influence it, like 80% control? Is it an ongoing process, not a one-off task? And is it a team game involving everyone?
Okay, useful checklist. And more on building the scoreboard.
Key is simplicity. Don't clutter it. It must answer. Where are we now? Where should we be? Show the FAG measure and the lead indicators clearly.
Pass the 5-second test.
Always, can you tell if you're winning at a glance? And let the team build it. Ownership again.
The medium doesn't matter as much as the clarity and updates.
Right. Whiteboard, spreadsheet, fancy digital display. As long as it's simple, visible, owned by the team, and kept current.
And he provides a checklist for making sure 4MO is set up right.
Yeah, things like Rules defined, FA, X to Y by when, with weekly targets, lead indicators with weekly targets, scoreboard tracking both, FI sessions happening regularly, commitments being made and kept, maybe an overall status visible.
Got it. Then he shares quite a few real-world examples.
He does. Nash Finch, the grocery distributor, using it for culture change, empowering the front line.
Marriott Marquis in NYC.
Huge success there. Focused the whole hotel on guest satisfaction, achieved record results, rolled it out wider, showed the power of leader buy-in, not just mandating it.
Comcast in Chicago.
Turned around a low-performing region using 4MO, strong leadership engagement, celebrating small wins. They cut repeat service calls almost in half, highlighted the importance of internal 4MO coaches too.
And the Georgia Department of Human Services.
A really impactful example. Under B.J. Walker, they focused on preventing death or serious injury to kids in their care. Used lead indicators and accountability to shift from being reactive to proactive. Emphasized the leader's role in clearing the path for the team.
So very different settings, but the principles applied consistently.
That's a takeaway. It's adaptable.
How does he talk about focusing the whole organization, not just one team?
He comes back to those 4 rules of focus. It's hard, he admits, but worth it.
The Opryland Hotel example.
Yeah, they had tons of priorities, but focused the entire hotel on one FI to improving top box guest satisfaction scores.
And the idea of the war versus the battles.
Right. Top leadership defines the overall war, the main organizational FIG. Then teams define the battles, their specific FIs, that will win that war.
Empowering teams to choose their battles increases commitment.
Definitely. And he reiterates 4MO is primarily for driving those tough behavioral changes, not just stroke of the pen stuff or monitoring the daily whirlwind.
And that ability to focus the whole company is a competitive edge.
Potentially a massive one.
What about rolling it out? Any lessons learned there?
Big one was that just training people wasn't enough. People might understand the concept, but not apply it.
So they shifted.
To leader certification. Leaders had to learn it well enough to teach it to their own teams. That created real advocates and deeper commitment.
Makes sense. And there's a process.
A 6-step installation process. Clarify the overall FA, design team FIGs and leads, launch with teams, scoreboards, FEG sessions, ongoing coaching for leaders, quarterly reviews, and celebrating success.
And having an internal coach helps.
He calls them the head mechanic, really valuable. And rolling out to multiple teams at once needs coordination but can accelerate results.
Okay. He also touches on FAQs.
Yeah, addresses common implementation questions, reinforcing that hitting the lead indicators consistently is what drives FX success.
What really struck me was how he applies this to personal goals, too.
Yes. The story of Jamie using it during her pregnancy is fantastic.
Her FAG was a healthy baby and managing her own health.
Right. Lead indicators for weight gain, steps, family time. Scoreboard, accountability partner, her husband, even got the kids involved. It shows the principles are universal.
And the father helping his son with bedwetting, using a calendar as a scoreboard.
Simple, effective, plus examples of people setting annual professional, family, personal FIGs, a grandfather focusing on connecting with grandkids, using time spent as a lead indicator.
A friend using it to improve family culture with specific meeting and outing goals.
It really demonstrates that the framework isn't just for corporations. It's about achieving any important goal that requires sustained behavior change.
Which connects to his point about the behavioral roots of achievement.
Yeah, referencing how hard behavior change is, even after major health scares. 4MO provides that structure needed for sustained change.
So Carter's final message in the book is?
Pretty clear. Once you grasp the 4MOs, you'll never lead or probably pursue goals the same way again. Achievement is a learnable skill.
Okay, quite a deep dive there into driving, not surviving.
Definitely. So to wrap it up, the core is those 4 modus operandi. Focus on the ferociously important, act on the lead indicators, keep a captivating scoreboard, and create a cadence of accountability.
It's all about bridging that strategy execution gap, right?
Yeah.
By focusing on the behavioral changes needed to actually get things done, moving beyond just surviving.
Exactly. Hopefully you listening picked up some useful insights, maybe some aha moments around those lead indicators, or the power of a simple scoreboard, or that weekly accountability rhythm.
Yeah, things to chew on. So maybe take a moment now to think about your own work, or even a personal goal you have. How could these ideas apply? Where could you bring more focus or track things differently?
And maybe a final thought to leave you with, kind of a challenge. Looking at those 4 MOs, focus, lead indicators, scoreboard, accountability, Which one feels like it might be the most challenging for you personally to implement consistently?
Good question.
And maybe dig a bit deeper. Why might that be the challenging one for you? What's underneath that?
Definitely something to reflect on. We encourage you to explore these ideas further if they resonated. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.